2022 started off on a heartbreaking note. During the first week of January, 4 people died in the territory from illicit drug and opioid use. 3 of the deaths were Carcross Tagish First Nation citizens. Communities across the territory held vigils to honor their memory. Later that month, Yukon Health Minister Tracy Ann McPhee declared a substance use health emergency in the territory.
It is time to rally around our communities, our friends, our neighbors, and our family members who need our support.
The declaration does not grant the territorial government any additional power or privileges, but is a commitment to provide a coordinated response. The same month, we also brought you a story on the new Yukon First Nations School Board. After weeks of referendums, 8 Yukon schools ultimately voted in favor of joining the board.
Just really excited, just knowing that my daughter is going to be going to one of the schools.
Now up and running, the board gives First Nations and communities greater control over education. It also aims to improve Indigenous students' educational outcomes.
I think it's a long overdue step, and it's time that First Nations communities had a real voice in how their children are educated and what programming happens at the school.
Fast forward to this summer, where festival season was in full swing thanks to dropped COVID restrictions. In June, the Attica Festival in Whitehorse returned for the first time in 2 years. The annual week-long celebration showcased Indigenous arts and culture from across the circumpolar region. This year's festival featured a hand games demonstration and even performances by the Sami people, an Indigenous group from northern Scandinavia.
The spirit and the intention of why we have this festival every year is always about just bringing communities together, sharing stories, and really just the heart and soul of us coming together.
Attica wasn't the only event to get rave reviews this summer. Dreaming Roots is a stage performance based on the past, present, and future of First Nations people in the territory. It weaved together works from 50-plus Yukon Indigenous artists in dance, music, storytelling, and more. Its themes included the impacts of residential school, the relationship with salmon, and Yukon's northern landscape.
This is all, this work is new for them, and it's their creation, and it's traditional, it's new, it's contemporary, it's visionary. It really speaks to the climate of our Yukon society.
This summer also hailed the discovery of an incredible find.
When I first looked at it, it was just amazing. It was like something I couldn't fathom.
In June, placer miners discovered the mummified body of a 30,000-year-old mammoth calf on Trondequitchin First Nations territory. Named Nunchuga, she is the most complete mummified mammoth found in North America. Towards the end of the year, First Nations consent was a topic of conversation for the fall sitting of the Legislative Assembly.
So where we're coming from is in a position where we should have a say what happens out there in our sacred territory.
NDP leader Kate White was vocal in her party's fight to restore the First Nations consent clause in the Yukon Oil and Gas Act. The NDP's proposed bill would give power to First Nations without settled land claims, like the Ross River Dinna Council, the right to consent to oil and gas development in their territory. But the bill was ultimately voted down in the legislature. That's your 2022 Yukon Year in Review. Sara Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.